Speaking of episodes that sort of redeemed a season, The Flash, episode 4. Michael, I'll let you start.
I mean, you think I'm going to start talking about the Red Death, but nobody wants to talk about the Red Death. We need to talk about the main event of the storyline. Baby Jenna is back. We have not seen that child in 5 years, but she is back. No, I'm kidding.
Who?
Baby Jenna, Joe and Cecile's child, who showed up as a baby like 5 seasons ago, and they talk about her all the time. Now that baby has turned into a fully grown child, and like it all happened off screen. Baby Jenna finally showed up.
Let me mind my business. You guys
Yeah.
Well, Jenna's probably like, what, preschool age? We're at preschool, if not going to kindergarten at this point. Surprise.
We'll get to that, don't worry. But wow. So fine, so happy to finally have an episode focusing solely on the Red Death. Javicia Leslie, oh my goodness, what a performance. It's great to get to first of all know more about this villain, because I feel like next week's going to be the last time we see her. I don't like these graphic novels. I want full season stories. And I feel like they're finally hitting the ground running with the storyline, and now we're going to lose it next week. But my oh my, did they hit the ground running with this episode? Arguably the best episode of the season. It depends on whether you like the fun of the premiere or the more serious side in this storyline. So we let you make that choice. The two episodes in between do not compare to the first and the fourth. But what an excellent episode. It was just great to finally learn more about the villain. We finally learned. I like how they adapted the storyline so that this version of the Red Death is very much like the comic book version. They wanted to destroy their villains once and for all. However, they started using the Flash's super speed to preempt when they were going to be villains. So if they made so much as one bad decision, they toss them in Iron Heights so they never get the chance to turn into a villain, which that's not fair. You're robbing people of their futures. So that made total sense why this version of Batwoman, the Red Death, in her timeline, she's from a different timeline, Reed, by the way. We finally learned that she's not from a different Earth. She's from a different timeline. No, it should be the Red Death.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to follow. Okay, continue.
There's too much going on.
That would be a plot twist, though.
That's why Jen is the main event of the story. No, but she's the Red Death is from a different timeline, and Barry in her timeline tried to stop her from stealing his speed and putting villains in prison before they'd done anything wrong. And according to the Red Death, she was best friends with Iris, and when the Flash turned on her, she tried to throw a lightning bolt to stop him, and the lightning bolt killed Iris instead. So in this episode, the Red Death has shown up at our Iris's front door and is trying to appeal to her to get Barry to give her his lightning so that she can use the cosmic treadmill to open a breach back to her timeline so she can go back.
Cosmic Treadmill's a really good band name. Sorry, I just.
Oh my goodness! Wow, from Windy and the Winchesters of the Cosmic Treadmill. But yeah, I have to say I've talked too much explaining, but the point is, there was a lot of storyline in this episode, and I feel like they had to make up for how slow the story's been moving up until this point. But we really got it in this episode, and I'm really glad we did. And I also, as a lifelong Batman fan, I just want to say they've turned the Red Death into a walking Batman one-liner, and you know, I'm here for it. Last week she said Robert Pattinson's I Am Vengeance. This week she said the Batman the Animated Series is I Am Vengeance, I Am the Night, and then instead of I Am Batman, she said I Am the Red Death. And my personal favourite, when Iris decided not to help her, she said the iconic Michael Keaton line from Batman 89, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." And oh my goodness,
I know Michael turned into that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he was like pointing at the screen. I was like, oh my god.
I tell you, I
they
was
did
so
that
happy.
just for you.
They did. And it was followed by such an epic suit up of the Red Death, because Sabrina, we have to talk about the scene where the Red Death armor took its helmet off and there was no head there.
I wasn't ready. That's not what I thought when they were going to. I thought it was going to get Ryan, and then it's like, no, she's like the headless horseman out here. Yeah. This is nothing in that suit.
Throughout the whole scene, I was like, "Where's the head? Where's the head?"
So great. I personally think this is my favorite episode. And I would rank the season opener as the second. I think that might just have to do with there's a little bit more action in the scene. I think the plots were more balanced for everybody, if that makes sense. But also it's just because Javicia Leslie was having an absolute time, like she was living her best life as a supervillain. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, parts of it were like, eh. And I was like, but that's the point. She is supposed to be unhinged. And so the further we get into the episode, the more like chaotic she gets. And it's just, I'm willing to go on a ride with her with this. I mean, she was screaming and her body was flailing. She had when she said, let's go nuts, her eyes got wide. And then we had the armor scene. She truly was. I didn't buy her story that she was selling to Iris at all, and neither did Iris, of course. But Ryan was giving it her all.
Neither did Iris, of course. That killed me. You said it like you and Iris are like talked about it. You're like, we don't know. I love it. Wait, I have a question. Is this her only episode, Javicia?
She has next week too.
Next week as well.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's definitely gonna be fun. So like I mean that she's unhinged, it's that like, so this woman shows up on Iris's doorstep like with a little scar, like, I got cut. Can you bandage me up? And like she's trying to sell this story that she had been basically robbed by the Red Death out in the Palisades, and she had to drive back to Gotham and then had to drive to Star City. And Iris is sitting there like, so you got jacked for all your stuff. You came all the way here instead of checking in with your team to tell me about a villain who jacked all your stuff. Why are you here? And so when she's like, she's telling the story, she's giving it, and then she made her fatal mistake is when she opens the fridge and gets some creamer, because Iris knows Ryan's never been in this house, so why is she so comfortable just going in there and getting creamer out my fridge? She's not that type of person. So just feel like, I've never been here, but let me just raid your fridge or something. Like, that's not who Ryan is. So that's when they have their moment, and Iris goes get the gun because she stays ready all the time.
Oh yeah.
I will say Ryan did hand it to her though after they got through their story. She it's like a hair shoulder twist thing, and she just shoves her to the floor. And I was like, oh, but I wanted to see them fight. They did not do that, but I wanted to see some hand-to-hand combat in the middle of the apartment. But I love Candace Patton and Javicia Leslie together in this scene. They're so dynamic, and I think it really worked that this Iris has a friendly rapport with Ryan, but not a best friendship. So she's able to see the holes in the story that Ryan is giving. And I will say, stop killing Iris. There's always an Iris who dies. Right. And this is another one who dies. So I really appreciated what this episode had to offer, even if I don't really care about Mark and his potential death.
No, I mean, I'm glad Chilblain tried to redeem himself a little bit. My favorite part of his whole redemption arc was when Captain Boomerang was like, no, let's not kill the Flash. Instead, let's find out who he is under that mask. I'm like 9 seasons in.
Wait, no one knows who the Flash is?
Well, Captain Boomerang doesn't because he's a bad guy.
Okay.
But that's what I like, that because you would have seen that in the old 60s Batman show. You would have seen that in anything. We're 9 seasons in here, and the fact that the Flash's true identity might be revealed has stakes. It shouldn't have stakes because Barry's out here telling everybody under the sun who he really is. But like, it had some stakes. But Chilblain stepped up, even though he's working with the bad guys. He was like, oh, I wouldn't touch his cowl because you'll get 50,000 volts and be fried to death. So he stepped up for Barry in that moment, and that's when Barry seen that he did have some potential. He was worth saving. And in the end, he did. He overpowered the cosmic treadmill when the Red Death tried to get the Flash to use it, so all the energy came back into the Red Death. So the Red Death can't get home. So in the end of the episode, she went crazy, and we think Chilblain died. He didn't, but we think Chilblain died because he sacrificed himself to get Barry home. Oh, and also the rest of the rogues turned up. We got to see the Hotness, we got to see Goldface, we got to see Pied Piper. They showed up just to save the Flash and bring him home. They had no purpose in this episode other than that. So the whole Rogue War thing is carrying on, but they had a little bit of gravity for Mark's potential death. They said, I like that Barry was like him trying to appeal to the Red Death's sense of justice and be like, oh, you're a good person underneath that mask, even though I don't know who you are. That was a bit like, been there, done that before. But I get the fact that he tried to that he was worried about Mark, because Mark did have potential, and then he turned himself into the bad
Mark
guy.
Chilblain?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I believe.
I don't know why I assumed that Chilblain's name was like Blaine.
Yeah, that's a surname, I think.
Chilblain is his last name?
No, Blaine is a surname.
Oh.
So Mark Blaine.
You guys gotta let me stop asking questions.
I forgot that until the Red Death referred to him as Blaine last night. I was like, oh, now I get it. But yeah, but speaking of Chilblain's death, the Chilegra moment afterwards.
Cringy.
No, yeah.
It seems like they try to shoehorn some of these things into
Oh.
episodes where they don't need to, like, they could have sat on the bench for a week.
Michael,
No one, like, no one come for me, but that's just an outsider's perspective.
No, everyone agrees. Yeah, I mean, Michael, please tell him what happened, what she did after she thought this man was dead.
So Allegra's the one who can like teleport. So they showed up to the place, got the flash, and teleported back right as Chilblain was being killed in front of them. So Allegra was pretty scarred that she had to do that. And then she decided to go over to Chester, who was sitting at his chair doing whatever it is Chester does. And she said they've been ignoring each other ever since they kissed in the premiere, apparently. And she said, now I'm finally ready to talk about how we feel. You know, Mark's death just reminded me, like tears in her eyes because she just watched a man die. Mark's death just reminded me that we don't have so much time. So now's the time to like, let's talk about us, with the biggest smile on her face. And then even Chester, who was pretty heartbroken, was like, and then it said, and it was like, no, we can't do this right now. It's the wrong time to do this. We need to stop the Red Death. We need to grieve Mark. And then afterwards, we'll talk about it. And I mean, that's probably the right response. It felt completely out of place. And I think that was the second to last scene before the credits rolled. And I'm like, we're doing a part one here about the Red Death, and this is what we're giving us. No, that wasn't necessary at all. I don't mind Chester and Allegra. I did kind of like smile when they finally got together in the first episode, but now we're going to do a full season of that was a mistake, bove they inevitably end up together again. So they're going around in circles here.
It seems early to make that kind of like YOLO move.
Well, I don't think they also really shouldn't be able, won't they? Because they've been one for a full season now, so there was really no need for them to do that. I also thought that it detracted from the very heavy-handed message that they had in the episode, which is that everyone's life has value, and there is always a possibility to redeem yourself and get a second chance, even if that results in your potential death. I did get that was the message. I feel like it's clunky, right? Like the Barry doesn't always need to be, I can save you through the power of positivity. Like, we don't need to do that all the time. I get why it was in this episode, but I think it's also, it sort of cheapens the work that some of the criminals and villains have already done to better themselves by being like, you know, Frost tried to kill me, but people make mistakes. And I'm just like, that's not a mistake, Barry. People make choices, they make bad decisions, and then they regret those choices. That is what happened with Frost. She regretted the person that she was, and she made measures to be a better person. Again, there's work in that. It can't just be, I told you can be a good person, therefore you are, right? Mm-hmm. There has to be inspiration for it. And I think that's what worked well for Mark's arc. Not that I felt bad for him. I did think Hartley was a real one. He was like, we have to go. And he just pulled them all away so they could go back to the Flash lab. And like, that was a real decision. I feel like the Flash has done this before, as far as like, no, they don't want to leave a person behind, but sometimes you have to recognize you have to. Mm-hmm. And I wanted them to sort of deal with the weight of that, but they didn't, because we had Chilegra things to do.
Wait, these themes kind of seem similar to Walker Independence, not to like change the subject, but like you just said two things. I was like, that's like Walker Independence. And then you said the other thing. I was like, that's like Walker Independence too.
Yes, but Wendy does it better. Wendy is less clunky. Wendy lets the episodes grow and the characters take their time as they develop, rather than first episode, I'm redeemed, I'm new.
Oh, it's funny because it's true.
But last point about Flash, Michael, did you feel like they resolved the Joe plot? Do we feel like he's settled? That the Jenna almost getting hit by the stray speed lightning bolt was and Cecile being able to save their daughter and then rushing to go save everybody else out on the street, that was the end of his story? Or was he just appeasing Cecile and we're going to get at least one more Joe freak out before Jesse L. Martin's time is done?
Yeah, we think he's only going to have 5 episodes and he's been in 3 so far. So how are they going to write Joe out? Maybe will he decide that it's his problem, so he needs to leave? I don't know. I saw the mechanics in that storyline. You knew as soon as Cecile was there to protect their daughter, Joe was either going to be like, say the city isn't safe, or he was going to be like, you're a hero. We are safe with you. Clearly, it was the latter. I feel like it's a predictable outcome, but it was also a little unpredictable because I genuinely thought they were going to write Joe out here. Something's going to have to happen because they said they were coming up with a storyline to write him out because he's only going to be in like 5 episodes. I think we know he's going to be back in the series finale. So does that mean he's only going to be in one more episode between now and then? How are they going to keep Joe off screen for that long? So, I mean, it was fine. Again, I think the acting between them two carries that storyline for me because I don't necessarily see it as it from a story standpoint, but it's great performances from Jesse L. Martin and Danielle Nicolet in that scene. And I have to say that I prefer Cecile when she does serious stuff. I'm glad we're doing more of that because I felt her emotions in that scene. It was pretty cool seeing her stop the glass and being all 11 about it. I know based on Jenna's drawing, I know Cecile is going to end up getting a suit and be the hero by the end of the season. And I feel like that's probably the point of this arc, but I don't know how they're going to write Jesse L. Martin out at this point because he's only one more episode between now and the finale. So what's going to happen? Is he going to be written out next week? Is he going to decide, I'm going to take the baby and go, you need to stay and be a hero? I don't know. It was fine. I like I said, I saw the mechanics at work. That's all I can really say about that.
I feel the same. I kind of want him to take Jenna and go. I kind of want him to make the same decision his ex-wife did. Though I think she was tossed out by him. But to decide that she was going to stay away and that she needed to work on herself. And having Wally change her perspective on life, even if it meant like abandoning Joe and Iris. I kind of want him to be on the other side of a choice like that. And see what it means, and why you would choose to protect your child in that way, and how it's difficult to go back the longer that you're away. I don't know. I just wanted there to be stakes in Jesse's last storyline, and there would only really be stakes if Joe makes the choice that's controversial, the choice that's hurtful, and then Cecile has to deal with that the rest of the season until they bring him back.
That makes total sense. And it would be a serious storyline for her as well. I don't know. I didn't mind it, but it's not my favorite storyline for either one of them.
No, not at all. But, still, great episode. Even with that
awesome
storyline.
Yeah. We're moving in the right direction.
They are moving in the right direction. I mean, they have to. It's the final season. Like, you got to give us something.
Get there eventually.
Get there eventually.